The real deals are on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deals. Kenneth and Farrow's Deal.
Well, hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our Friday. October Screamfest has begun. Haha, are you screaming yet? If not, just wait. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
What is it?
So,
19th.
Who knows what today's date is? Was I supposed to say the episode? Okay, everybody just wants to hear about what did we unearth about Amityville. That's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about a story that has captivated the nation for how many years now? How many decades?
Wow, that was
4 or
75.
5
The book
decades.
came out in, what, 79? Something like that?
It's captivated our hearts, our imaginations, our fears with its vivid reminders of the paranormal, the supernatural, the psychic. So please get some cheese and a nice warm beverage as I say hello to everybody in the chat room tonight. Hey, thank you all for joining us. Athena, Jennifer, Carolyn, Santos, Tony, the Monkey Man, who was in there first, Doris, and hello, Michael. Hello to Cecilia, who can't get in, and Peggy, who can't sign in either. I'm going to just sit down with both of y'all and figure it out this week.
If they go to the link too early, it may not appear in the live box.
Exactly. That can be a problem, you guys.
That's happened before.
So we've got a lot to cover tonight. It's going to be an extra special episode. We're going to go over a little bit, so prepare yourself.
Yeah.
We'll probably go between 20 and 30 minutes over tonight, just because the amount of information here we'd like to share is we're not talking about opinions other than our own. When it's our opinion, we're going to say this is our opinion and our experience. Other than that, we're presenting you court fact, police fact, religious fact. We're going to give you things that we found out. And in no way, shape, or form, we want to make it known. Are we saying that Amityville never happened? That the Lutzes didn't experience anything? Their children didn't? We're not saying that. We know they experienced something. We know that something happened to that family. What we're going to do is we're not in a space of judgment. We're going to take a look at what really did happen according to recorded record, and what are the circumstances that create this event to captivate an entire nation, an entire world for so long that the book is still a very sought after novel, and that to this day the people that try and live in that house are still pestered, bothered, stalked.
Are they really?
And see people, yes, coming in their windows just so they can get a peek
Oh,
inside.
I thought you meant spirits. I was going to say all they do is deny it.
I'm talking about the people that have tried to live there are still bothered by people trying to prove there is something in there.
Little disclaimer.
Yes,
I'll
go ahead
mention
with the
first,
disclaimer.
and then you can give some sort of legal disclaimer, I guess, Farrah. Then
Yes.
yeah, I was biased on this one because I, like Farrah, we grew up experiencing something that, in today's standards would have made it in a movie and it would over enhanced or whatever. And night terrors and
Yes.
and so whenever I heard this, it was like, finally, I relate to this, shadows and all this other stuff. So I was viciously defending it online, even in the 90s, against some of these people whose name may come up, who just kept saying it was a hoax. And I was biased on it. Now we're coming from more objective and kind of balanced. Fair and balanced.
Yes.
So, Farrell, the disclaimer on this has to do with the topic, titles.
The topic, we in no way, shape, or form are defaming anybody or in any way, shape, or form saying anything bad about the Lutz boys who still suffer. Both Danny and his brother, they still suffer from the memories and the horror of what they went through with George Lutz. You notice I didn't say Kathy. Dear Kathy, God rest her soul. She's a Catholic woman. We pray she's in heaven. And we've had Laura DiDio on our program.
Yeah.
She's very, very credible, very believable. We've also had Lorraine Warren on our program. And, we're not here to talk bad about anybody. We're not here to disseminate their character. We're here to present you with who we are, where we are, and what the facts were, and what we see as what stole and captivated the imagination of a country for so long that we're still just glued to our seats in fear. So, Ken, let's get our St. Michael prayer up, and let's get started.
All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the malice and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him when we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the divine powers of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits who roam through the world seeking to ruin us souls. Amen.
Amen.
Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on us all.
Amen. Don't forget to, at the top where it says in the chat room, click top chat. You want to click live chat so that you can see everyone's questions as they scroll through. And as you have questions and you post them, Deb is, I don't know where Deb is tonight.
I guess.
She's on assignment again. So we miss you, Deb. Don't know where you went. But Deb's out there tonight. She's probably hunting down a fabulous Amore burger or something. Please click on the cute little bell so that you get notifications. As I believe Tony Copianco was saying, we get a little notification on our phone. If you click on a notification,
then the live show will come up as a reminder.
That's
it's like,
right.
oh, yeah, I got to watch that.
If you subscribe to our channel when you're on your laptop or your PC, a little note will show up right in the small right-hand corner. It'll say, deals are going live. And with anybody else you're subscribed to, too. So thank you all for joining us. Ashley and Tina, we see you just popped in there. Thank you for joining us. Share if you can. Give it a thumbs up, please, at the bottom underneath our cute faces. Please
and
hit the like
subscribe
button
if you had not subscribed
so
yet.
that it will get bumped into the ether. So we're going to begin our dissection of the Amityville story where it begins.
Who done it's a big question.
Yeah, we have to start with the DeFeos. Because the DeFeos are a good classic Italian family. Whether he was involved with the mob or not is kind of besides the point. Even the mobsters love the Blessed Mother, and they go to church regularly, and they donate, okay? Do not knock the mob, okay?
Don't
They're
knock the
good
mob.
people. Just because they're involved in some shady stuff, okay? The good mama, the good daddy, yes, he's overbearing, yes, he's over strict. If you look at the time period that we're looking at with the DeFeos and when these murders occurred, we're talking about a time of post-revolutionary change. You're looking at the 70s. And the late 60s to early 70s was part of that whole free love culture. And there was more drug use. There was more kids, spouting off to their parents. When the DeFeos got this home, they were so excited that they were going to have room for everyone. They actually put up the sign, High Hopes, in their driveway. The DeFeos, noticeably, they loved their children. Yes, they were strict. Yes, they were very, very, they had a iron fist on that household and on that children, but they also spoiled them. And I think this is what led Ron to just run wild, and he actually enjoyed running with the gang, running with the neighborhood, and he liked to go out and do drugs. I mean, this was a very, very difficult time for any family. When you live in an affluent neighborhood and there is a local bar and everybody's either dealing or doing, it's very difficult. And Ron, to his credit, to his detriment, I have no clue what we should call it. He's very hard on Ron. He restricted him and his sister. He basically put down things that him and his sister were quite resentful of, the iron grip that he tried to establish. There were rumors that there was quite a bit of trouble in the DeVeo house. There was rumors that he struck the mother. Well, in Italian households, you'll probably find a little bit more than that. Not all of them, but there were some going-ons that were not very nice. Do you want to take it from here about DeFeo, Kenny?
Yeah, the neighbors were reporting, so it was an observation from their version of not Lenny Kravitz, Mrs. Kravitz from OB was, Abda, he's actually hitting his son. Oh, sit down, Gladys, and shut up. But that was reports from the neighbors in the area, and including police investigations. But since people were nosing around at some point in the beginning before they got sick of it, they were answering some questions, not really providing so much as definitive answers, because we still don't know. Well, we're leaning on a certain area, and we're going to go over that tonight. The whodunit. Was he guilty? Before you go into the Lutches.
Yes.
But they were all shot. And the police. It's funny because I was watching this 3D model and they showed this position. It must not have been from the police report or nothing. That's the 2D one.
Yes.
They showed all the bodies laying in these different positions. That's the way they found them. It doesn't mean that's where. It
does not mean that's where they were shot.
Yeah.
A police officer, contrary to common belief, contrary to what tabloids reported, they were not all shot on their stomachs. That is common belief. That is what is commonly believed. That is what's commonly shared. The police officers that were actually there, that actually investigated, that were actually part of the team, it is recorded that those bodies, some of the bodies were moved and placed in that position. The police officers also believed that due to the extensive injuries, that some of the children may have been trying to run away from whoever it was that was shooting them. So they may have known their murderer. There was so much shop talk, but of course, when you're looking at the levels and preponderance of proof is the hardest thing we have. There are more questions than answers in the DeFeo murders. The facts remain DeFeo is serving 6 life terms. The fact is DeFeo still suffers from voices and still suffers from demonic attacks in the prison.
Why did I spell DeFeo's wrong? It doesn't look right. What's the deal with that?
That's DeFeo.
It's not DeFeo.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that, okay, that's like debunk number one. You just said that about that. They said, remember, everybody's like, what are the odds that I'll be sleeping on your stomach? And people were going over that and talking about it. And it turns out the police report didn't say that they believe they got shot on their stomach, that they were actually moved. And you said earlier that the two parents, the mother and father, seemed to have been shot in their position, and children were shot and then put in bed. And those. But I thought that we saw something not long ago. I don't know. It's like maybe they don't get their information from the police because the police probably held on to it for a while. What do you think of that?
I think that from the research that I've done, including with the Washington Post and a couple other newspaper archives that I went through, it appears that the first information out was just from eyewitness testimony of Ronnie DeFeo being in the bar and saying, "Oh my gosh, I got home, my whole family's been shot." Ronnie DeFeo had obviously taken a lot of drugs that night, so his version of his confession is not entirely credible. Let's just put it that way. So that the initial supposition was that, oh my gosh, the people that were in there, the scene was so open to people walking through it, everybody thought, how could all these people get shot on their stomachs with this shotgun? Nobody heard anything. That was where the mystery comes in. Why didn't the neighbors hear anything besides a dog barking? Why was his sister's murder the most vicious killing of all of them?
That's where it kind of fits in the mafia thing a little bit, or mob, excuse the mafia. I don't want to like label it on a particular one. And that is, if they are all afraid of some local bully in the form of some mob, you would obviously keep quiet because you don't want to get your house machine gun riddled with bullets, or you turn up dead in a car on fire.
True.
Or any of that stuff. So that might explain why none of the neighbors, because, oh no, here comes Tony. And he's got 2 guys with him, and then everybody just closes their windows up and they say nothing. That's very possible if the mob thing fits, but we're leaning away from the
and
mob
if
thing.
you look at the time, okay, we're talking about a huge shotgun. If you're not familiar with firearms, the shotgun that was used to kill the DeFeo family was huge. In the middle of the night, this thing could have been heard from at least a block away. Why wasn't it? The only thing I can think of, old gangster style, wrapped in blankets when it went off. So it had a loud, muffled kick. They do not have silencers for shotguns. But still. And then, of course, there is the evidence that speaks to us from the grave and tells us that the daughter, who was brutally murdered, Ronnie DeFeo's sister, she actually had shotgun powder as if she pulled the trigger. So if that were the case, which is still part of a collective belief by the police there, that her and Ronnie were upset with the fathers taking their allowance and cutting it back. They talked about, we wish they were dead, we'd have their money, we'd be free. The daughter actually took it upon herself. That is what is supposition. Took it upon herself. Ronnie comes home. He's higher than a kite. He cannot believe his beloved mother is dead, and he goes up and brutally murders his sister because he's not happy with what she's done.
But she killed the other two
Father
kids.
Jamie Dennis is in the room.
Father
Hey,
Dennis.
he's back. I know, Father Jamie Dennis. Good to see you.
Mhm.
We're talking about the famous case, Ronnie DeFeo and the Amityville horror, and how it came to engross, captivate, and basically define and determine what is paranormal and what is demonic in
It all began
the
there,
minds
sounds
of
like.
Americans. Because this was a very, very scandalous case.
That was
So-
strange too, because this is of course, the marker of how to make a haunted house.
Yes.
And then later on, they used this as a standard because they were doing a lot of this. Well, they still did it. The parapsychology stuff, like they did in Hell House,
Yes.
the movie A Legend of Hell House, where they come into all these guys and they call it, and the topic of psychic phenomenon. You ever hear not Stephen Hawking, Seagal? No, the guy who used to do billions and billions of star clusters. Remember, he used to talk, on Nova.
Yes.
Steven Seagal? No.
No, Steven Seagal's the actor.
That's the karate
That thinks
guy.
he's like some karate guy over
Carl
there in
Sagan.
Russia.
Where did I get Seagal from?
I don't know.
Carl Sagan. They used to do that. They would talk about psychic phenomenon, like Sagan would talk about the universe, and it was just so way out there and so like it's all brand new. All of this stuff's never happened, and we're now researching psychic phenomena, at least by name.
Precisely.
But this one seemed to change it because suddenly the word demon entered into things more.
Well, the first time the word demon entered, let's go forward after Ronnie
Okay.
was taken into custody because they believed that it might have been a mob hit and they wanted to protect Ronnie because he was just a kid. Then they find out that Ronnie's talking about demons in his head. The demons made me do it. I'm hearing voices, which is more than likely what happened. So, the whole family is dead. We have 6 life sentences being served. Come in 13 months later, the house has been marked down to $80,000, and George and Kathy Lutz are looking for a home for their brood, and they're looking for a large home. Now, they have no problem with the fact that there's a murder there. They jump on the home right away and decide to move in. What captivated a country is the fact that 28 days later, they walked out, sat down with Ronnie DeFeo's lawyer, and had a conference, a public conference right away about what happened. This is where the story gets murky. This is where the details and research, if you are a person of logic, if you are a person that looks at facts, if you are a person that digs up what really happened here and process of elimination, Sherlock Holmes style, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull out the facts and we're going to look at them.
Yeah, we're going to go over things as though we're looking at it for
the first time.
Yeah, just even though if we already had concluded some things, we're introducing some of this for the first time. And that includes all of the incidents that we're going to go over in the house. So which should we go through first?
Well,
yeah.
As we're talking about George and Kathy Lutz, we're not going to talk about what happened until after we discussed why. All right, let's look at, they've left their home and they're holding something public with William Weber, who was Ronnie DeFeo's lawyer. Ronnie DeFeo's lawyer, he actually believed Ronnie. When he sat down with the Lutzes, because the Lutzes, everybody believes they left everything just the way it was. They walked off with the clothes on their back, but guess what? They didn't. What isn't well known and what isn't well talked about is they packed their suitcases before they left. They packed clothes. Now, this is the first fact we'd like you to think about. If there is a fire in your house and you can smell smoke, Are you going to sit down on the bed, call your mom and say, hey, what do I need to take out of the house? Oh, pack 3 packs of clothes and leave. No, you're going to get out of the house. If you run into something demonic and you have no idea whether it's a burglar, are you going to say, well, I better pack some clothes for my son. Let me go back in my son's room and grab 3 days worth of clothes. Now, from my opinion, that's not normal behavior. If you're that scared and you have to get out of a house, why don't you send the police in? Leave the house. You don't pack clothes. But everybody packed like they were going on vacation. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, sadly, Kathy and George Lutz's reason for leaving this $80,000 house was instantly questions. Why are you having this open, welcome to the press, meet the press, understand the horrible house and everything that I lived in? Why are you having this if you don't want to talk to the press and you don't want anybody to know what you really went through? Mm-hmm. Her excuse was she told 2 magazines, and she was also interviewed, that the lawyer threatened her children that if she did not talk to the press, that he was going to follow them to school and ask the children to speak to the press. Now, I'm not sure which state you're from or what county you're raised in or what pole barn you live in. If a member of the public bar, the Sheriff's Association, any professional entity that they're associated with, if somebody threatens your child, they have the possibility to lose their license. Yeah. So in a he said, she said, this would be a very difficult one. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, Ken.
On the first point, I don't have anything to add to that because that's new information for me, or for me, not from, but it's from you to me. And the hooded specter was the reason they said there was a hooded specter that appeared and was like chasing him down the hallway or something like that. Black hooded specter. And I've seen those things before. Like I said, I related to the book, and that's one of the reasons why I was a harsh defender of the story. Where now we're like, I don't know, man. It's like, what isn't that been exaggerated? We're seeing it, and everybody admits it all the time, that a housekeeper, all the clothes were packed and they left, so it means they didn't rush out of there in a panic like the movie and everything. Oh, let's get out of here! Come on, grab the dog, and all that. But the reality is that I was listening to an old interview with George Lutz on KMOX Radio St. Louis, with Jack Harney's show in the morning, and he told the story about like what it was like, because I don't know if anybody moved in there yet at that time, and he said the housekeeper was cleaning the house, and then she got really tired, and so she just flopped down on the couch or something, and she just fell asleep and woke up, and she said, well, if something's going to happen to me, I guess here I am, come and get me. And George told that story, and I was thinking, okay, a housekeeper, so you left all your stuff there, unwrapped, wrapped Christmas presents, etc., so the housekeeper came there and obviously could have got that stuff for them if they were.
Well, that's why I said, why didn't they just call the police and say, there's something in my house. I need you to go. I need you to go get my money. Kathy was a Catholic. I need you to go get my rosaries. I need you to go get my kids some clothes. We have nothing, and I'm scared to go back in there.
I don't think they sold everything. I think they did that so they could move to California without a load.
Well, Ken, I've got some new information for you I haven't shared with you yet.
Okay, we can wait on that. You can tell it now.
Yes. No. We're going to walk through the story with everyone.
Go back to it.
Now we're talking about the Lutzes and William Weber are talking, and they're going to write a book together. Basically because William Weber wants to include the story of Ron DeFeo, since for all these months, almost over a year now, he's been telling him that, I have memories of this and these voices, and I don't know what possessed me. So he's talking about demons, he's talking about voices, and William Weber's like, this is a good one, we could make some money. We could, sit down together, let's talk about this. And of course the Lutzes are all like, yeah, this is really a good idea. So the contract was drawn up. The contract for the book that all the events, and at the time, see, this is interesting about the Lutzes. If you go back and you look at the number of interviews that they have had over the months and years after the actual events, they had bumps, they had some smells, they had a few things that kind of say that there might be something there. But when you look at the book, it is so, shall we say, Hollywoodized. There's so many things going on. It's very, very difficult to tell which version really occurred. So we're looking at, right now, the contract between the Weber, Mr. Weber, attorney, and the Lutzes. They drop a contract. They're going to agree on the events. All right, that is in the contract. That contract is public record. It is filed. They will agree on the events that took place. I'm not sure about you. Why would you have to agree on the events that took place if you're telling your story and you know what happened? The percentage breakdown to the Lutzes was truly, not significant at the time. They had agreed to take what is very well known in publishing circles as an ascending, as sales accrued and came through, they would get more money, a bigger percentage. William Weber represented Ronnie DeFeo, and he included Ronnie DeFeo with a 2% cut. Now, the Lutzes were so upset with this contract, they said, no way. Now, we're talking days after they left, all right? So, within less than a week after they left this house, Mr. Lutz is contacting the paranormal community, and they're inviting psychics, they're inviting researchers, ghost hunters. And this is where Laura DiDio, this fabulously cute young reporter, comes in to help out. And she wants to help George Lutz find an appropriate psychic to find out what spirits are in this house, what happened to them. And this is where it starts to get very hinky. All these researchers running around in this house to prove there's real phenomenon. Among them was a man named Steve Kaplan, a self-proclaimed vampirologist. He was, yes, his business card that said that he had established his own psychical research institute, similar to the ones the Warrens later started.
Yeah, Stephen, I looked up him in the old days, in the 90s, if you call it the old days, because it was still like almost 20 years later. He went to Pacific College. I think it's on the East Coast. I'm sorry, it's not on the East Coast. Pacific. Should it be self-explanatory?
Exactly.
He got a degree in sociology. I think he finished it up.
Oh, actually, I found out. I researched some of his stuff. He actually's got his bachelor's, all right, in sociology. He's got a master's in communication. He's also got a master's in interdisciplinary studies. And he's got a PhD. He was also married with a very brilliant
There's a PhD
wife.
in what?
Oh, gosh, I've got it written down.
It was sociology.
It was sociology.
Yeah.
He got a PhD in sociology. How does that apply to the paranormal? It doesn't.
Or
How
it
does that
doesn't apply to metaphysics or science or nothing.
No, it doesn't. All these cute little initials behind people's name, it doesn't exactly mean they know what they're talking about, kids.
He's one of the ones who spawned this quote that I used to quote myself. I said, the sure sign that you know nothing about the paranormal or, well, spiritual warfare now, is that when you have a doctor prefix in front of your name, it means you know jack squat.
Precisely.
So I think people go to work hard. Nowadays, they steal it. They get a PhD and go to cheap college to pay for a certificate. But I haven't met anybody with a PhD except for Father Chad, priest, whatever, that know what the heck they're talking about. And we're even talking about from both angles, looking from psychology, parapsychology, which is devices and detectable anomalies and all that stuff, and spiritual warfare. They're always too much in the wrong direction. I don't know. Somebody proved me wrong on that one.
So true.
Yeah.
When we look at Kaplan, the Steve Kaplan gentleman that was first introduced to the Lutzes before the Warrens were, he warned them. And he also went on TV publicly just before he went to the house, and he says, I don't like liars, and I don't like people that BS. So when I go on a place and I investigate, those people better be telling me the truth or I'll expose them. And this This public announcement would haunt the Lutzes almost to the end of their days.
From what I understand, he never was allowed on the property. George never let him on, so he could not do a formal investigation of any sort.
And that's not true. He was on the property. He was able to conduct an investigation, and I found that evidence, and I also found where he was...
What source, though, Stephen?
No, it wasn't Stephen, actually.
That's the first time I heard that, too.
It wasn't Stephen.
But everybody had said that he never was allowed there, and he brought psychic
That's because they were
mediums that
trying to
and...
discredit him, and I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you might tell about it in the same block of time.
You want me to do it right now?
Well, if it's short...
It is kind of short. Mr. Kaplan was asked, and we're talking about a decade later, when he was confronted by the Warrens, because the Warrens and him didn't really see eye to eye either. And it's interesting how not much has changed in the paranormal community. You see ghost hunters at each other's throats. You see, psychics at each other's throats. I'm better than you. I'm better than you. Well, the Kaplans and the Warrens, boy, you talk about the Hatfields and McCoys. He was interviewed, and in this interview, they were seeking to destroy each other's level of credibility, which is kind of crazy. And they were asked, how could you have come to research and prove or disprove what was going on in that house? And I think you're right about the Kaplan guy. I don't think he ever stepped foot on there. He talked to him initially. It was another person that I'm thinking about. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Rick?
Maybe it was Rick. But yeah, Kaplan and his wife, they basically, they smelled fraud from day one. And they actually talked to everyone that actually was in the house. They talked to the police that were there that day. And they gathered a lot of information. It was a different person that actually interviewed him. And I think maybe was that Hoffman?
I don't remember that name, but then again...
Oh, yeah, Hoffman wrote an article that... See, what we have here as we're going through this list of everybody that tried to prove or disprove, George Lutz was suing all these people. George Lutz sued the Kaplans, as far as I know, from a couple of different interviews, that there was a lot of litigious actions going on between lawyers and witnesses. Everybody wanted the rights to this story. This was Ronnie DeFeo's story. He killed people. The Lutzes, we're going to get into what happened with the Lutzes. So, and to take the story further, Stephen and Roxanne Kaplan set out to expose them. We have, right now, all the paranormal community, psychics gathered in the Lutz home. This is before, anything really came out about the whole story the Lutzes lived through, because they wanted to prove why they couldn't live in that house and what happened to them. DiDio contacted the Warrens. There was a number of very well-known psychics, energy workers, and they proceeded to have 2 seances in the DeFeo home that night. And I call it the DeFeo home because the Lutzes were only in there for a few months. So it is the DeFeo murder site. Now, everyone in there that had attended these seances, they all said that they got chills and they felt horrible presences and they felt real heavy weights on their chest. Now, interviews with the camera crew, the news people, there was only one other person besides the psychics that actually got any heart or chest pain. Everybody else said it was no big deal. We spent all night there. Nothing happened. Zero. Zip. Zilch.
Probably anxiety.
Nothing happened. Okay, now, we're talking one of the most haunted, hellish places on earth. No lights flickering. No electronic problems. No flashes going off. No phones ringing, no TVs turning on, no radios going on, no things crashing behind them, no smells, no sounds.
But you did say cold chills, right?
Any kind of chills, anything. There was nothing. Nobody experienced zip.
That can cause some anxiety too, the cold chills. Your blood pressure and stuff changes.
If this house is so active and this house is so horrible, why were the psychics the only one that were opening up their psyches to allow themselves to speak to the spirits? why wasn't anybody else witness to the constant interference of electric phenomenon caused by demonic? Why did absolutely nothing happen overnight? Nothing. Absolutely not. I mean, I just find that kind of strange, personally.
Well, as a former defender, I used to say it was because demons don't perform on cue.
Okay, all right. Let's go back to your demons don't perform on cue, because I love that one. Okay, when don't demons perform on cue? Okay, according to us in our books, when there's a priest present, a holy person, or somebody who's about to bless the property. Yeah. That's when they don't perform. We're talking it was a circus.
You can provoke it.
You look at pictures of these people, and they're laughing, they're drinking, they're having a good time. It's a party environment. Don't you think something's going to show up and have fun? Get real. So, I'm sorry.
Provocation wasn't done. That wasn't the goal. But I don't know if they knew about it then. When you take out aversion to the sacred.
Provocation was done by Ed Warren. He said so in multiple interviews, that when he was in there, he was saying, get behind me. He was carrying his cross from room to room. They wanted proof. They wanted proof. Hey, Rosalie, you made it. So, I
still think they don't want to perform on cue. I think that's like a protocol, like what they used to call in Star Trek. What would they call that? The prime directive.
Oh, yes, your prime directive.
They go out of their way in great lengths to make sure they're not caught in film, so that they stay a mystery, and it's easier to blow off his imagination. And if God allowed it, or it got pushed, and they were not allowed to try to conceal themselves. But the problem is that they go into a house. If you go into a house with nothing in it, you're going to get the same thing as this story did. That's why it cancels itself out, is what it does.
Exactly. All right. Can we go back a little bit, so we can just say, well, this is why nothing happened there. A lot of people believe that, yes, you're right. Demons don't want to be found out. They don't want anybody kicking them out. And rule number 102, spiritual warfare. You have to have authority. You have to have some sort of anointed, God-given authority to be able to kick it out for anything to get irritated that you're there.
Yeah, well, it's no threat.
Because basically, there is no threat.
That's true. So who is there to threaten?
When you are talking about having a seance on a property, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this is problem big time. This is the biggest red flag for my bull in my china shop right now. Why would the Lutzes want to have a seance on the property to prove what they had experienced when they just had Father Pecoraro come in, bless the house, chase everything out? He experienced a voice and said, don't really use the sewing room. Don't even bother using that room. And I suggest you contact your parish priest. Here's his name and number, and I want you to contact him and get involved with him. Did they listen? No, they didn't. All right, so their first problem was A, not listening to their priest, and B, playing with what? Necromancers. Why would you do that? The place is clean. It's clear. It's been blessed. Okay, color me stupid, but
it's not you that's stupid. It's them.
It's like, well, no, it's like they want people to believe this is what's real. That's where they thought you can just, let's solve this like a Scooby-Doo mystery, and we'll do a seance, and we'll find out which child's haunting the house, so we can hope it's trapped spirit. Go away, because it misses its mommy. The same thing that got them caught in the Annabelle case. If that's what part of that's to be argued or not, is another story. But that's these conflicts of interest, and it does seem like there's a bunch of amateurs. Like I said, they're just like kids. You cannot clear a house of any kind of demonic invitation and then invite a bunch of people to say, hey, I'm going to go under and I'm going to trans-channel, baby. Come on in. You can't do that and not expect nasty stuff to happen, people. Okay? So, not only do they do it downstairs, they go upstairs to the sewing room right where the priest said, don't go in. And come on in, demons. How much more? Do you need to wave a banner? They're already there in the daytime. What do you want to do it at 3 a.m. for, you dung coughs? Ugh, merciful heavens. So on with the story. So we have Father Pecoraro telling him, don't go there. Don't do this. And then now we have the happy seance people having their little seances. Now, what happened during the seances? According to eyewitnesses and according to most people, like I said, that were there, the camera crew, people, Lord Dio, there was one psychic that actually got sick, felt like she was going to vomit. I mean, you know, if I invited a demon in me, I'd probably want to vomit too, just between you and me. Already vomiting thinking about it. So, you have parapsychologists telling them that, you know, there's horrible things here. I feel, okay, this one gal, oh my gosh, this one, Kenny, takes the cake. You have all these psychics, okay? Lorraine Warren was a trance channel, trance medium. She was leading the seances. And you have this other one, a very, very, very well-known one at the time. Goodness gracious, what was her name again? Ethel Myers. Ethel Myers was actually invited in after all these psychics and everything left. But the 315 seance produced nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nobody felt anything. Nobody saw anything. None of the psychic mediums, you know, their eyeballs rolled back and they're like, oh, Freddie lives here. None of that stuff, people. Okay? Zip, zero, nada. Okay, does that mean that DeFeo didn't experience anything? Does that mean that the Lutz is experiencing? No. It means that even with invitation, the demons didn't want to mess with a bunch of psychological, psychobabble, paranormal wackos.
And what if the oppressed person, DeFeo, is not in the house anymore and suddenly the house isn't haunted because the center of activity is not in the house? She's in jail. That's another thing there right there that could fit. No, they go there and it's an empty house. Next week we're going to do a little thing about that stupid live exorcism that happened in 2015 near Halloween night. You go to an empty shell, a guy was possessed there. He didn't do anything to make the house possessed. The proximity effect doesn't work that way exactly. In this case, DeFeo's gone. He's not there. How many spirits did he take? And everybody's like trying to poke something that's not there.
Precisely. Now, what you're looking at on screen, kids, is a very, very handsome, dashing image of the healthy Ron DeFeo before he actually started hitting the drugs and alcohol really bad. And the Lutzes, what a sweet, cute young couple. I mean, who wouldn't want to have that couple over for dinner? And there's the smiling Warrens. Yes, they're always ready to paint your picture and show you the ghosts in your attic and the Amityville house. Back to the story. So as we look into the facts and evidence, the psychics came up with nothing. And as Rosalie so sweetly reminded me, there was one psychic that was in there that ran out and believed that there was something evil in the house, which there was. It just was not what was being told to the media. So we have that claim that is in all the papers that this is the demon house and the goings on there are going to prove that the Lutz's claim is real. The research that was done called in someone by the name of Hans Holzer, because Hans was believed to be prolifically, hands down, the most notorious ghost hunter he could prove beyond a doubt. He totally believed it. He brought in a trance channel like Lorraine Warren, who did not get results, did not get possessed on site and get any answers.
Yeah.
Miss Ethel Myers walks into the home. Now, this is on a separate occasion in 1977. Miss Ethel Myers, as witnessed by Lord Dio and others, her neck contorted out like this. And she sat back and started speaking in an old man's voice. Okay, so this is what trance channeling does. This is the danger. This is why you don't do it. This is why you don't talk to people that do it. Ethel invited a spirit in. Now, this spirit could have been Socrates, Rin Tin Tin. We don't know who the hell the spirit was. Demons lie. Remember this one, Kenny? This one claimed that it was an Indian chief. What the heck don't they say? Oh yeah, well, you know, I picked up horse caca. You know, I was the little guy that worked with the horses. No, this is an Indian chief, okay?
I got lost in the woods.
Not a lowbrow. This is the highbrow. I wear the helmet, okay? All right, so she's the Indian chief. And she's talking about I want you out. This is my land. That's nothing new. Obviously, the priest was told to get out. So obviously, this Indian says, this is my land. This is my burial ground. So now they have a new avenue to follow of what really happened to them in this house. I mean, this just gets better and better and better. So this Ethel lady trans-channels this Indian chief, and now, okay, the Lutzes are running to the Historical Society, which they never went to before this, looking for evidence of this name is going to just, oh, you guys are going to love this. Oh my gosh. The name of this Indian group, the Indian chief supposedly was buried and unearthed there. This is what the claim of the psychic was. Now,
they never found it, in other words.
They never found it. It never existed according to the, there's a historical society there in Amity. And for some reason or another, they never thought to look into this before they moved in. This is kind of strange. So Weber and Hoffman, who originally had interviewed, I mean, the Lutzes are having all these interviews and all these psychics come in and all these people. Meanwhile, Weber, the guy that they decided not to do the contract with, and Hoffman, his assistant, decide with all the hubbub around Amityville, they're going to give an interview, and they just wrote a piece for Good Housekeeping. Now, of course, every man that comes home from work in 1977 wanted to pick up his wife's Good Housekeeping, go sit in the bathroom and read about what? Demons.
My mom had that issue. I read the original one.
Oh my gosh, I'm dying. Okay. So this is Good Housekeeping. Now, what is George and Kathy Lutz's response to this, who are trying to prove that they can no longer afford, they cannot be in their house? Do you think they, oh, thank you so much for getting the truth out? No, they proceed to sue Hoffman. What do you think of that reaction, babe?
Was that the first one they sued?
That's, I believe, the first one they sued, yes.
Sounds like in a timeline anyway.
Paul Hoffman, yep.
That's funny, because we always heard about the Lutzes getting sued, and I felt so bad.
And they named Weber in the lawsuit.
When no one believes you, you know, I was taking that victim side on that because I related to it. But, yeah, that's probably what a lot of people, you felt sorry for him, so everybody else was the villain. And I got a problem with atheists anyway, like Stephen Hawking. You know, God rest his soul. He's going to need prayers. You know, his book came out, and it was unfinished, and they published it. And it says in there he doesn't believe in God. He's not an agnostic.
Who's
what
that,
kind of intellectual is he?
Lutz said that?
No, Stephen Hawking.
Oh, well, of course Stephen Hawking doesn't believe in God. He believes in himself.
That is the basic MO of the so-called parapsychologists, is they may believe in the afterlife. But Hans Holzer was a mixed bag. But
Hans Holzer! Oh my gosh, he worshipped Buddha. He worshipped energy. Hans Holzer was like all over the place.
Yeah, I think the German thing made him sound more intelligent, like Dr. Ruth.
Of course.
Another idiot.
So into our story here, kids. So the Lutzes are suing everybody because this is their story and they want it. Forget Ronnie DeFeo. Forget the fact that Ronnie DeFeo lived it. Forget the fact that Ronnie DeFeo heard the voices and shot his sister that we know of for sure. Maybe his family. Ether Mayo trans-channels these fabulous information about all these Indians, all right? So 8/30, 1977. Jay Anson is hired by the Lutzes to write the book about their experience. And as you all know, Jay Anson is, you know, totally the author, the end all to be all.
Now deceased, but he did
yes, he actually died of a heart attack. Exactly. He has now decided. God rest his soul. The incidences that we need to look at here. Jay Anson wrote a fabulous book. The problem is that he said it was a true story. Now,
based on a true story, or
no? He said it was a true story. Amityville.
Yeah,
is a true story.
I don't have a copy of that anymore.
I never had a copy of it because I
that's
thought
because I'd never
reread
it, and it's too beat up anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably took
the as you know, the people that were challenging the original people that came over to investigate. We're talking about the Kaplans, Mr. and Mrs. Kaplan. They basically saw the book, saw the interviews, because for not wanting anybody to know about what happened and not wanting to talk to anybody. They were getting paid to have appearances everywhere the Lutzes were.
Yeah.
I mean, they made quite a bit of money. $250,000 from the book and $160,000 from the movies. I mean, that's not chump change back in the 70s. That was like some big money. So as the Kaplans came on, challenging the Warrens and challenging the Lutzes, they were saying, you know, this book is really, really fabricated well. And even Lorraine Warren was honest enough to admit and come out and say that Hollywood dresses up something to look like something it never was. And she says, while we stand by the Lutzes and what they believe happened to them, we don't agree with, you know, the Hollywood version of the movie nor the book. The incidences that had to be addressed, people, that everybody wants to know if it really happened, like the car. The priest in the book, you remember that one, Ken? When the priest is driving down the road and all of a sudden it shoots up, the hood shifts, shoots up, smashes it, you know, he has the heart attack, crash, everything else. The problem with that was they had to change that because the priest drove a Chevy Vega and it would flip up the other way and it never would have hit. So they changed it in the book and the movie. Number 2, the front door flew off the hinges. There was never any incident. There was never any evidence. It is not in any police report. There has never been a door that's come off the hinges when they since left.
Because something like that, you would call the cops for that. And
yes,
say,
they did.
Someone
they
tried
would
to break in.
Precisely.
And they said they did, didn't they?
You see the side door of the Amityville house right there on that side? That is one side of the house with the 2 lights on it. On the other side, there is a screen door that was very obviously hanging off. Now, because I don't know if anybody here that's listening has lived on water or lived on a water channel, gushes of wind can rush through there, even if the wind is only 10 miles per hour, and you've got your windows are rattling. If you've got a screen door open, it's going to slam. So they're saying that some kind of spirit slammed that off.
That's right. I remember that.
But this is not a wood door, so there's a gross exaggeration there.
Of course, I haven't ran into stuff like that. I mean, a lot of these things, since I was young in the 70s or whatever, there was a lot of things that we got to experience, and we're using those to also help to analyze those from my perspective as the public calls us, demonologists and so forth. And that was that one, and then there was one about the hoof prints, and then we'll talk about Jody in a second, but the hoof prints, while you're on the same thing in the book, hoof prints in the snow.
Oh, wait till we talk about the hoof prints in the snow. That was all fabricated too. Yes.
The almanac for the recorded weather, there was no snow in the ground during that period of all the 28 days. And so where was
Isn't that strange?
How did they get hoof prints in the snow?
Yeah, how would they get footprints in the snow? So following with that in the book, there was a question about the trickles from the keyholes inside the house. The trickles in the book were black slime. In the movie, they were red.
Oh, they came out of the keyholes?
They never happened. Yeah, they never.
See how long it's been?
It never happened.
Yeah, good thing you watched it lately.
Well, I was doing a lot of research on internet too. Now,
that one's funny because that fake archbishop in California, we'll just say Archbishop Ron. When he got on his first radio interview, he acted like one house had stuff oozing out of the walls. People use this Hollywood stuff, and I'm like, oozing out of the walls? They're talking about that whole idea of ectoplasm. You'd get some of those cases in Britain, but nowadays back since I was doing it early, people would throw grease off of the hot bacon pan on the wall to try to say that, and you'd even smell the bacon grease on it, and it looked like snot or something. You know how it does. And even something lately in town here that I painted over the spot and the stain comes back. But that's unfortunately it spawned these type of ideas too. I caught you off guard. Oh no.
Well, I'm just somebody just asked in the chat room, what about the bleeding walls? It didn't happen. That was, and Jay Anson would never admit to all the fabrications that they agreed to and they put in. What he said is, he said, I wrote a novel and I wrote a story to make money. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've enjoyed every bit of it. So there was a lot of dramatic license taking the original story and really fabricating it into something it was just incredible. And like Tony and Athena are discussing in chat right now, kids, what we've got is we've got on one hand, it's never good to seek publicity for this sort of stuff because it's always going to turn around and backfire. Two, yes, to a certain extent, it is good every once in a while to take a real story like this and expose the public to it so that they know what can happen to them with respect to protecting see that property you're looking at? Nobody can live there. Respect to the people that lived on the place where it happened, with respect to the people that had to go through it, and three, especially with respect to the priests and the pastors and the people that actually have to live this stuff. They cannot be bothered by, 25-cent calls from a payphone, which doesn't happen anymore. Look how I date myself. From people saying, oh my gosh, I need help, I need this, I need that. And it's because I saw this story and I saw this and you helped this person. And that's not always, it's just not always, it's not good, people. So onwards and upwards with the story. So during this time, we're talking 2 years after the Lutzes abandoned this house, there's all these lawsuits. This lawsuit comes up. The people, George and Kathy, couldn't pay for the house. There's a belief that they possibly never could, that they got in over their head right away. And we're going to tell you what we think later. The people that moved into the house after them, the Cromarties, they purchased the home from the bank because all their personal possessions had to go up for auction to pay for the months that they didn't pay for, the Lutzes. They actually sued the Lutzes because hundreds of thousands of people were coming by at all hours of the day or night, looking into their windows, peering into them, trying to catch them in the bathroom, sneaking onto the property, getting in boats and coming across the channel and peeking up over. That would be so creepy.
Was that something to do with like the non-disclosure of?
No, it had nothing to do with non-disclosure. It had
because how could you sue them unless it was like, oh, what was your grounds? Like, oh, the Lutzes didn't tell us.
What it was, the grounds was an invasion of privacy. They had no right to use that address. No right.
And now they changed it. It's no longer 112 Ocean Avenue. I don't know what it is. 115. Who knows? But yeah, that's more the stuff. And this was like the first, I think, time they did that. They might have done it in England if you look at some of those cases. But this was the first one, I think, in the USA. Where it was just done to enhance publicity. It went to movie. It was because of the times and the technology. It was ripe for the picking, and they did make them. They died early, though. You see both. First, Kathy had tubes in her nose, and then George.
Oh, it was just. It's
they both
just
died
so
of
sad.
What's it called again? COPD.
COPD stuff. It was really sad. Yeah. God rest their souls. So consequently, now we've got all these lawsuits going on. They're suing the Lutzes, and guess what? William Weber, after 2 years goes by, and we're talking about what was his name again, is writing the book that was sold into the movie. What's his name?
Okay,
again?
Which name you looking
Jay
for?
Anson. Okay, Jay Anson's written the book. They got the movie rights. The Lutzes got money from it. Well, guess what? William Weber gets a gander at it, and he says, "Wait a second. We decided on these events. We decided what had happened." Most of the ideas that you sold, Jay Anson's, are mine. So William Weber takes the Lutzes to court, too. So the Lutzes, all this money that George Lutz got, he's having to pay it out now in attorney fees because he's getting sued. Because William Weber took him to court and said 5 to 6 hours of wine, we came up with that story that you sold to Jay Anson. So he's upset. He's not getting a cut. Now, the Washington Post, which I will rarely ever quote, it was one of these wonderful sources from 1979. Basically, the judge that looked at these cases was just disgusted. They have recorded in the Washington Post at the time that the Lutzes had left the property and neither one of them worked. None of them did. They had no jobs. They had no source of income. So whatever George had before was no longer there. They moved all the way into California and rented a $100,000 house.
Yeah, and that's something. Even
Possessions
higher.
are
Right to the
auctioned.
house.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that sad? But George received $100,000 right away from the book signing. Received another $100,000 from the film, and he was being sued. Weber and Lutz settled out of court. The judge, Jack Winston, that had to preside over these two squabbling people over their little piles of money, said publicly, "It appears that to the most largest extent of the book is a work of fiction." And he threw the case out against Weber, forcing them, this is a $1 million case, forcing them to settle it so that Lutz wouldn't
Yeah, I thought Warren
reinstate the
tried
case.
to sue them. Isn't that funny?
So,
That
Lutz
wasn't
is
made clear
upset
once.
at Hoffman, okay, who was basically in that initial meeting. And the Lutzes go after Hoffman and sue him too, because he wrote one article. So WAPO reports that. Oh, yeah, exactly. After they turned the house back to the bank, the Cromartys, as you know, the Cromartys are suing. Everybody's suing the Lutzes. They all want their cut. The
Yeah, it does seem that
Cromartys,
way.
who were in the house after, okay, not one seance, but two seances, folks. Two seances. The Cromartys, big family, beautiful family. Nothing's going on. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Zip, zilch. Nothing. They're happy there. They love it there. Other than they can't brush their teeth without being stared at. Oh my gosh, it's bad enough I got a dog and kids trying to get through the door in the bathroom. The policeman. Okay, now you know you got problems. The police are up and up. They're nice people. They want to help you. When you name a policeman in a book and you say he did something, you better make sure you quote him correctly. The policeman sued the Lutzes
That's something.
due to the misrepresentation of claims. Yep. Also, due to the fact that Lutz, who claimed that, I think Ken said there was like $5,000 missing, it was actually only $1,500.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They
yeah.
never contacted the police, never filled out a police report. Nothing was ever said till after they left and said, "Oh, by the way, you know, this money is missing and it was stolen." What a shock. Okay, Newsday. I do like Newsday. Newsday was good at the time. Newsday found enormous contradictions among all witnesses. Because if you're going to captivate an entire country, corroborate. Get your story lined up. So Newsday is out there. Everybody wants to know what really happened. You remember this, Ken? When they were talking to people, the Lutzes were making the show circus. They were on Geraldo. They were so fun to watch because it was like,
Phil
oh my
Donahue,
gosh.
Sally Jesse Raphael.
Yes. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they were just like in all the shows.
They were like instant
They must
media
have-
sensations.
They must have got used to that income. That's why they didn't have to get a job. You know how it is. It's like some of these
Oh, yes.
sports players end up bankrupt. MC Hammer,
Oh, yes.
the old rapper from, I don't know what he was, and hip hop artist from the 80s. He ended up bankrupt, and the IRS went after him.
Oh, yeah.
That's a shame, but yeah, people
So-
have a plan.
None of the witnesses would corroborate what the Lutzes said. None of them. They said it was all, do I dare say, a bull cow pie. Okay? Father
Say the least.
Mancuso referred Lutz to the local priest and said, "Hey, I sent the priest was waiting for the Lutzes to go there so he can make an appointment and come and do a follow-up." That's what priests do. If they come over and they deliver your house, they deliver your property, priest is going to come follow up. That's what the Catholic Church does. They never followed through. People, if you want roaches out of your house, you just treat your house once, say, "Oh, they're all gone." No, you treat it a second time and make sure they can't come back, and you seal all the cracks.
I'm not really clear. Did the priests do what they? If you tell a priest that, they'll come over and they'll bless your house in the name of Jesus Christ and by His most precious blood. I blessed His house.
Yeah.
And they won't like directly address the demon by saying, "I rebuke you, I bind you, spirits of darkness, in the name of Jesus Christ, by His precious blood," and then bless the rooms. They do the other one, like when you give them a rosary and they bless it, and that's putting sugar on it. But you got to run it out, like exercising and blessing water for a priest.
Exactly.
So he just did the blessing, right? The blessing,
No,
because they used that other
he
word.
actually rebuked and got rid of supposedly whatever's in that sewing room. He chased it out of there. When it said to leave, he left.
And his
That's
sickness
why
and
he
stuff, I don't
wanted
think I
a
heard
priest
that
to
either.
follow up to make sure nothing was in there for those kids.
He might have been
Okay?
an older priest. He died early, too, it seems like, after Anson.
When
J.
he
Anthony
was
Alford.
put on the stand in front of the judge, Newsday reports, he denied everything except for the voice. He said the Lutzes never followed through. There were no smells. He said that the other priests were making a joke of it. They were all laughing about it because hearing a voice was, yeah, well, that's kind of par for the course. But where the Lutzes were taking it, that's what was laughable to the priests, that all the stuff the Lutzes were claiming. Camarado, quote unquote, to Newsday and WAPO, no footprints. There was no pigs in the snow. The face burned in the fireplace or well never happened. It was never on the property. There was no corroborating witnesses.
Oh, yeah.
What
the
was
face-
so funny?
In other words, there wasn't nothing burning. You'd have to,
Exactly.
take charcoal and draw it on.
Do you remember the next door neighbor? They interviewed the next door neighbor over and over again, whoever, was interested in hearing what really happened. The next door neighbor, the whole, flying pig thing, that Jody kept seeing that was supposed to be, this big demon. It was a big fat white Persian cat
Oh, sorry. I didn't
that
get the picture
jumped,
for that one. I forgot
that
about
jumped on the roof and would sit there, meow, meow, and
It
stick
looks
his
like a
tail
cat,
straight up in the air and
except that it has a
scream
pig.
at her.
The picture has a pig curly tail, and it's a pretty
It
good
wanted
drawing.
to come in and play with her, for goodness sakes, Ken.
But the accounts, and we'll mention it shortly, is the Miamiville Daniel, who seems pretty credible, said he seemed to validate, I don't know, if the red eyes or his sister's account of the spirit that called itself an angel as a pig of some sort. Now, does that mean Amy won't answer any interviews or anything? She's never
True.
been.
Well,
Just-
you don't blame her.
yeah.
I mean, who wants
we
to be
don't know.
involved?
So we don't
Who
know.
wants to be involved
But
with
it
this?
sounds like if you watch Miamityville, you'll see, and put the post
Miamityville
up.
was very eye-opening. These boys really went through hell with George, and we're about to get to that because we've got to sum it up here the last 20 minutes of the show. So basically, we have no one corroborating the stories. Now, the last and final thing before we go over the evidence of what really happened and what we know happened from people, eyewitnesses, etc., is the polygraphs. All right, I am not proud of it, and I am not bragging. It is so easy to trick a polygraph. I had to take a polygraph against someone that hurt me terribly. Do you think I told the truth? No, I had to go to confession. I lied. And guess what? I passed with flying colors. Everybody believed me. It was that easy. And in the state of fear and the state of shock and the state I was in, there is no way I should have been able to pass that polygraph. So when you read that George and Kathy Lutz were polygraphed by some of the best in the world, does that mean their story isn't true? No.
That's why you never hear it.
It just means that they believe their story's true because it's very easy to pass a polygraph. Now, let's get into the good stuff, as Ken says. Let's get into what we know. What
Yeah, I guess we covered the pig one and stuff. So
Yes,
what's,
we
what's
did.
working to say on that? Because it's like you'd have to watch Miamiville.
Who is George Lutz? Anytime that we do an investigation, if you're writing a book, what starts your book? Character development. You have to look at somebody's character. Am I assassinating anybody's character here? No, I'm looking at a paranormal set of circumstances that are claimed to have happened and claimed to be demonic. So I have to look at who is involved, what happened. Like Ken said, you need to watch the film Miamiville. He does cuss a bit, so you may have to mute it a couple times, but good guy.
Good
He's
guitar player.
lived through hell. Oh, I know, he plays guitar great.
Yeah, he's got that.
Who is
he's
George
got that
Lutz?
kind of Queen's thing. F word every other word.
Ken, let's talk about who George Lutz is and what we truly know about him.
Well, you learned some of this in
About
Miamiville, but
the character.
first thing I heard was you're asking the why, if not the Feo murders, which is a hotbed for a haunted house, but not necessarily a demonic haunting unless the person was demonically oppressed and infested, and they leave. It might change the whole atmosphere if a good Christian family moves into the house and has the house blessed, for example. But George was into the occult on some level before he arrived. How much? It's hard to say. But
We
they were
only
doing
have the
transcendental
eyewitness
meditation.
of his children. We have no one interviewed other than them.
They admitted transcendental meditation, and even Warren said that they thought that
Spell
pertained.
casting, conjuring.
Well, not that part. Now you're getting the two mixed. You mean
No,
what
I am
Daniel
saying
said?
in addition. Yes, I'm talking about what
Oh, okay,
Daniel
I mean,
said.
what was on the record of them saying the Warrens?
Well,
they were saying
they
transcendental
lied.
meditation at first.
They lied. They did not say that they had anything to do with any kind of spell casting or conjuring, Kenny. They
but even
lied
when I
to
was younger,
people.
I knew that transcendental meditation opened you up like certain hallucinogenic drugs. and it makes you an
Transcendental
open book.
meditation is the same
Yeah.
thing as putting a candle or staring in a mirror and say, "Come on, let's play. What's your name again?"
It leaves you wide open.
Totally.
And then in the dark side, and I think I believe this because I remember there was a part in the book where Ed Warren told George, and the book has him do it. He was calling out demon names. Why? He just said their names like, I'll just say like Caspar. That's not their names, but and George told him stop doing that. I mean, that was good advice from George. I mean, from Ed Warren. But why was George doing that? Why would you call out names of demons if you're trying to get rid of them? That's what the demonologist on the dark side does. That's what the conjurer does. Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit mysterious. And then when we heard from Daniel Lutz in this My Amityville video, he put the pieces together. George apparently was messing with demonically controlled, I'm just using my own word, telekinesis. In other words, demonstrating for his friend in the garage.
And using it to scare the hell out of his stepchildren. God forgive him.
So
he
was into
scared
that.
those boys terribly.
Solomon's
Poor
magic.
Daniel is still scarred to this day. And why? Why would we believe the eyewitness account of a young boy?
Mhm.
He loved his mother.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, nothing to make.
left home at 12 years of age because he couldn't stand the abuse. What kid leaves home at 12 years of age? He didn't kill himself. He left home.
He's not motivated by money or glory
No,
either. He wanted to
he's
do
not.
this after his mother died. But he
Laura
never-
DiDio got to interview him, and I tell you, I watched that and I cried for that kid. I cried for those boys because these kids went through hell at the invitation of demons due to George Lutz, who claimed to be a Methodist. His wife was a Catholic. He purposely moved into a home, sat around, made himself feel sick, conjured, played with all sorts of demonic invitations so that they could get something going on in that property, and then expose the world to their brilliant idea and live off the proceeds. Who did they go to? They knew Ronald DeFeo's lawyer. Why would they contact him? Because he had the original story of Ron DeFeo claiming that it was demons.
Yeah, all he had to do is ride on that
Everything
coattail.
points to a premeditated setup. Everything. And the sad thing is that everyone knew about it, but everybody wanted to prove otherwise. Everybody was so insistent on proving that spirits existed and demons existed. Is there evil in that house? Yes. Anytime anyone listens and minds evil to murder or commit patricide, matricide, yes, there's evil. But people that step onto a place where evil's been committed and invite further evil, I'll tell you what, the family that moved in after them, they must be reaping the benefits of that priest blessing that house, because nobody but the Lutzes have ever been bothered. Nobody. That, in my opinion, and Ken's experience, that's not a haunted house. That's not a demonic location. That is not a portal. Do you remember the Red Room, Kenny? What Daniel said about the Red Room, the playroom?
That's important, yeah. No, I don't remember specifically, if you can...
Basically, it wasn't really red. It was more kind of like a pink red. It wasn't painted all the way. It was a toy storage
blood red.
area.
Yeah.
And then his dog was scratching down there. Okay, how many people have ever had basements? How many people have had mice crawling around basements because there's grain sacks or there's food? Do you know how many times kids carry granola bars in basements?
Or if there's a dead body because a rat died,
Yes.
they'll go for
Dogs
that.
are going to be sitting there They'd be scratching their little ways.
That's a great point, because you know what? The dogs, they're trying to make a case in the book that the dog had a psychic sleep. It wouldn't wake up when there was something happening. That's because spirits know that dogs usually either run away or, they don't usually chase them. They'll what they call psychic sleep. In other words, no one will wake up in the house when someone's having sleep paralysis and they can't shout, and the spouse is joyfully sleeping in their peaceful night's bliss.
Yes.
And the dog is at the foot of the bed and doesn't even wake up. But you got this dog, and I want more of that. Woo, woo, woo. Like, they don't do that. They act scared like they did in Poltergeist. At first, they did barking at the dot in the wall. But dogs don't react. And cats, they run, and they get scared.
So, the whole thing about the room, you guys, was totally an exaggeration. Somebody also asked me about the photograph. Okay, so let's talk about photographs. As a former photographer here, I can tell you that I've taken thousands of pictures. I was a former Mrs. Michigan America. I was a former... I did beauty pageants. I did all kinds of stuff years ago. I hate to say it, you guys, because I'm not proud of it. But I've been in front of the camera. I've been behind the camera. And this picture right here stands out as proof. I don't need any proof ghosts exist. I know they exist. Is it easy to catch one on film? Nah. It's more likely an anomaly. It's what photographers call a ghost image. Does that mean that's a supernatural, preternatural, real ghost? Nah.
Yeah, let's take apart this picture
Take
first.
apart the picture.
The most obvious thing I'll start with, and we'll pass it back and forth.
Okay.
Doesn't this look like just a lady with glasses? You see that? You see the hinge point right on the end of the glasses? You see how it has a square reflection from the flash, which is going to be square, not round, on both glasses? Now look at the lips. She has an overbite a little bit. She's got her hair parted at the center. If you back off and you see a closer picture, you can even see that her outfit looks like something our Aunt Betty wears, when she comes over and visits or something. But this is also, it's got shadows. It's got definition of planes.
That's the biggest tell right there. Okay? When I teach art, what do? I darken the room and I take one light and I shine it on an object because it's easier to determine the planes. Now, if you look at this picture, it's obvious where the light is coming from, and it's shining on a solid object, okay? If the object was, shall we say, ephemeral, if it was translucent, if it was a quote-unquote ghost, as they say, why am I not seeing the definition of the door behind the head? Why am I able to see the head solid, but part of the chin cut off? There is no, when you lay on a banister, you push your chin up like that. See what I'm looking like? There's nothing. And the lips, those lips don't say young child. Those lips say.
Oh yeah, look at the picture below it. This kid's got thinner lips than Geddy Lee or some Irish.
Look huge.
Like
and look
Bono.
at the thing. Okay, when I wear my glasses, all right, you guys can see my glasses, right? All right, look at the glasses going over my nose. Look at the kid's nose. Look at the side. Do you see the glare where the glasses are? This is a ghost image. Who knows where it came from, what it is. Do I think it's a ghost? No, I would definitely say no, it's not. I look at below the banisters. It looks like a ghosting image. I cannot tell you how many pictures I've taken at picnics, weddings, etc., and all of a sudden you got a ghostly image behind a table and a bunch of people going, oh my gosh, who is that? And you look closer, oh yeah, that's my cousin Steve. Oh no, that's Uncle Rick. No, yeah. Uncle Rick wasn't there. And you're wondering, how did that get on there? When I processed them, I put them in the liquids, I hung them up to dry.
That's the thing. You know what? They were going over all these photos, I don't know how many months after, and they didn't notice it the first time. Now, that's what you're looking for. We know these guys with these, they're sitting in their chair listening to audio with hash for 8 hours looking for an EVP. You really think they're going to miss this? No, the original people who were there recognized this woman as one of the psychic mediums that was sitting at the seance, something like that. That's why you ignore it. Oh, that's just a person. That's not an anomaly.
And Steve heard it was like one of the cameramen. They thought it looked like exactly like one of the cameramen. So that's kind of interesting. It could be a cameraman too. It kind of looked a little female.
That's true.
to
Because
me
you'll get on the floor,
because
you're
of
running
those
wire or
lips.
whatever, and they had flash, and they
But
had used
needless
wires.
to say, I do not. And sadly, a lot of people send us images of, oh, look at this is what's going.
Oh,
we
yeah.
don't look at cameras.
I only found like one in the last
We look for demonic
few
footprints.
years.
We do not look at pictures. Demonics leave a footprint.
Yeah, we get everything away from not pictures, because you know what? The pictures point us the other way. They're mental, and that's the sad part. I'm going to do. I'll show this real quick because it's important. And,
Oh yes, I agree, Jennifer. The arm looks odd too. Nothing appears to be right about it. It appears that. Okay, now let me show you something. Let me give you a visual here, kids, with film. If you're not familiar with the old style of film, okay. Film is rolled up, okay? Just to give you a basic non-chemistry thing, film is kind of like rolled up like this. Now, when you have an image here, and you have an image right there, all right? And you are unrolling this to be dipped into the baths, to be exposed, and let's say you get spit, water, some kind of chemical, you get a cross-contamination. That's what they call it, a cross-contamination of potential images or a degradation of the film itself. This is how some ghosting occurs, is the actual unrolling of the actual film as they develop the images. So it seems to me that that's probably more likely the cause, that it was an accident of the actual film itself. And whether or not it was there is not really important. As Tony was saying, we kind of agree with him. The incidents that occurred at this house seem to have spiraled out for some reason from the DeFeo family to the Lutz. And the evil that was begun there is still perpetrated by people that are continually sharing the belief that something happened there that didn't. The evil was invited in. People that choose to murder, evil is always a choice. Evil does not occur on its own. It's always hand in hand. It's always a choice of our free will. So going into the next thing, this is another picture of reference. Where did this come from, Ken?
I got to get this. Just ignore that text. Pay attention to Man Behind the Curtain. This is one that was out maybe 2013, and it probably could have been out longer than that, as long as the internet was circulating photos and all that. And if you look at first, it looks like some kind of character that almost looks like it could be like Pan or something, and it's looking to the right, and you got two legs, it's stooping over.
That actually looks like me when I'm practicing ballet.
Are you
Look at me bend over, try to touch my toes.
Now, if you look at that, and I'll put this where you can see a little closer. Okay, little boy, it's time to go away now. We know you're not a little boy, you're an adult. Okay, now let's go up to this and bring it up in the forefront. Well, a little higher than that. Okay, so what the reality of this is that's the person's leg. Now look at this little closer if you can reference this a little bit on the smaller picture at the bottom. This is the person's leg, where you have your legs up in bed and you're laying back, so they're resting back there. And there's a coat hanging on the wall. There's a bed rail over there. Now you can tell that's the bed rail filling that in for the leg that connects to the top of their knee. And you don't even need to explain what's in the background, this junk.
No.
This.
That's crazy.
Who knows what? And it should be kind of like really simple without going beyond explanation. I found another picture like that someone sent me, and they said somebody took it, and it looked like it was Jesus, and it turned out it was a Dell monitor, and the head of Jesus was actually the Dell logo, and it was funny the way it worked out. It's like, yeah, that kid's going to look like a saint.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that strange? And that's just like, it shows you what it looks like when you erase the detail that confuses people. Now you see a person on this closed circuit TV. It's got
Very
one leg
much
down.
So.
Yeah, and it's just perfectly normal closed circuit TV. And it might be old. They used to be so primitive, and it just gave you the idea that a cat went by the screen. So you can't go by this really crappy camera. And this is one other thing right here. The ceramic line was mentioned in the book, and it was creepy when you're reading it. George is walking around at 3:15 like he does when the band's supposed to be tuning up, and poltergeists, we call phantom noises. and he's walking by the fireplace and he trips over something, and then he gets up and it was the lion moved forward somehow or another, and he's got a bite. Kathy looks at it and it's bleeding. It looks like a bite mark. But I'm thinking, if you tripped over that thing, that's the first mistake. It's like, you're going to have the actual closed bite marks, like this thing morphed like in the end of was that called A Haunting of Hill House, the one with Leslie Nielsen?
I think it was a Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, not Leslie Nielsen, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
And we have to talk about that window too, because everybody is convinced that this window took this kid's hands. Mm-hmm. Did you hear about that? People had gone in to the house after the bank took it over when it was up for sale, and investigations showed, and I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with these windows that are hung with weights. They have these pulleys on the side, okay, and they're specifically routed over these really cool things that go up and down and up and down, because they're perfectly weighted, perfectly balanced. I don't understand the whole chemistry reaction,
If you shove them either way, they'll go up and down.
But anyway, okay, when you walk into a specific board on the floor, the window will shoot up if it's not actually locked. And this is the sewing room, supposedly, where the priest was attacked with flies and everything else.
Yeah, the hot
now,
spots,
and they had 3 separate witnesses that walked in the same spot and saw it shoot up. Now, did it fall on the kid's hands? You darn right it fell on the kid's hands. Was it demonic? We may never know. Were the kid's hands broken like in the story? Obviously not.
Yeah.
There was never a hospital record. Yeah, according to Danny, no, they didn't. He had to suffer with it, and that his hand was wrapped, and it hurt like blazes, but it happened, but not exactly the way it was purported to. Another of one of those little incidences in the book that just... why we bring this to your attention? Because it's all part of living through wisdom, discernment. We have to figure out...
Yeah. As investigators,
where's the reality in this? Where is this story glorifying God?
Yeah, become obsessed with this stuff. Like the guy goes around and tells the story of supposed Satanism, being a high priest. Well, he didn't use that. He said high wizard. But he spends almost all of the whole time talking about his glorification of how high priest he was and how many abortions he did in the name of Satan. Mm-hmm. And then you get to like, then I was at a mall one day and and someone gave me a miraculous medal. Bingo! I went to church. Next thing you know, and it's like, okay, you give us like this whole thing. He's just following the Hollywood model. People are like asking the books, hey, is your book all about cases? No, not in detail. Like, then Marcia opened the door. No, we don't do that. We make vague references to cases when they support the theory that it proves, the theology or the it points to the truth somehow or another, and it makes a case, as a case study. So, as we look to wrap up our show, the reason we decided to look at the evidence is because this is a case for whatever Fright Fest, Halloween, every time of year, people are just captivated. What really did happen to Kathy and George Lutz? Because they were married, we may never know what went on behind closed doors. However, due to the fact that most of their story cannot be corroborated, due to the fact that most of their story is only told by he said, she said, and they're both gone, we now have Danny and Chris Lutz. Danny and Chris are still suffering, and I don't doubt that what happened to them did happen to them. Was that there after a priest went in, blessed the house, dedicated the house, and called another priest to come and do a follow-up? I don't believe so. It seems more likely and very sad that due to the fact, if you've never met anybody that's into transcendental meditation and they're on this journey to self-discovery, they're dying desperately for something to happen. Something spectacular to give them proof that there are spirits. They have the ability to control their spirits. They want that proof right now. And what did George Lutz do? He made it happen. And I do not condemn that man. That man and his children need prayers. This is horrible. And people are doing it every day out there, playing with witchcraft, playing with stupid spells, loading it on their phone and going, hey, let's get an EVP. Be careful what you play with. Be careful what you invite.
Because George and Kathy, sad to say, they died very, 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 very horrible deaths.
Some of the things, if we can, I'll just run. I'm not going into detail. Some of the things that made me feel that I relate to it, or something else, is that Kathy had a dream of getting shot in the head. She woke up. That's common. If you go sleep in a hotel room for someone committed suicide, you might have dreams of suicide all night. It's hard to say how this stuff works. Jody says it's an angel. Well, it could be a demon, and it's the first time I've heard it appear as a pig talking.
I know.
It's like, what kid's going to be kind of... She was only 5. She wasn't like 2 or 3. She wouldn't find that's weird? Like a pig talking to her? Mm-hmm. Padre Pio's image on the moose antlers. We can do that another time. The phone interrupted static interference when talking to priests. Oh, man, it's like... Now that it's technology with wireless capabilities and cell phones, now it's gone a whole different direction. I had the static... I had the phone ringing by itself.
That was something that they didn't claim until after they talked to Ed and Lorraine Warren. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yeah. George waking up at 3:15, the hour of the murders, and he heard a band tuning up. I've heard several phantom noises. I heard potted plants breaking, and I had no potted plants or otherwise. Before I got married to my wife, I heard glass breaking when there was no glass, something bigger than just a small glass falling off a nightstand.
Oh, yes.
Which I don't like glass. I like plastic. All those kind of things, phantom noises, as they call poltergeists. It's normal.
Poltergeists?
Mm-hmm. Why did they move to California and they took, they sold their stuff at an auction? I thought it was because originally that they just didn't want to touch any of the stuff because they thought they would bring the spirit with them. But it turns out it just seems like the evidence is not there, that if you move to California, you obviously got money, and if you want to save a little money on the way, you want to trim it down like my roommate did in 1980s. I got his stereo and his EQ. He couldn't get that in there. Can you believe it? It's like that's the way it happens when you pack and move, and it didn't sound like they were in the best of shape being countersued or sued.
Well, and they had all those hundreds of thousands of dollars and thought that they were just going to be living happily over there when, people were like, wait a second, you said this and I didn't say that. How about the cop? You said this and I didn't say that? That's just not too cool. You don't do that, police officers.
Isn't that
You
weird
don't
too,
do that. You don't drag priests into the judge and say, well, you said this, and no, he didn't. This is what he said. There was no smells. He did not verify that he was actually touched or smacked or hit. He verified that he heard a voice that said, get out. That was it. And how common is that? How common is that for people working in deliverance? That happens all the time. Doesn't mean you leave. You bless the place and make sure it's out. And
Don't
he
you
did
think
that.
It's weird that both of them arrived when they weren't in the house? He did the house when they weren't in there, and then the nun comes over, and she leaves for her own reasons, that she's obviously sensitive.
Oh,
and then she leaves before she says anything to any. Oh, she says something. Where are you going? You just got here. Oh, I can't stay here. I can't stay here. It's like they weren't in the house and they had to experience these things by themselves. What's the likelihood of that? That they're not even going to be. I know it's a big property and a big house.
It's sad.
The black water coming from faucets. This is right by a river. You know what it's like in Florida. Remember
that never happened.
Brick rots in Florida from salt water. I know Amityville has that.
Like Jay Anson said, they added a lot of stuff, Kenny. They added a lot of stuff.
Amityville would be like a dump for the ocean of the Atlantic Ocean, right? So that should be salt water, and it should be rotting and causing hinges to rust and who knows what. But I think you get the point in the picture. I think this is pretty much no detailed list is totally, as much as we want to say, can say. But I think this is pretty good. We went over a little bit so we could wrap it up.
Yes,
and
we had to. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
guys all for hanging out with us. Please give wonderful. I got 22 of you watching. Can you guys like our video, please? We want to get it up there because basically we want to remind everybody the battle has already been won, you guys. Mm-hmm. And we're just here. We're trying to help you win the fight, do it right, hang on to the right stuff, and not invite stuff. So, tonight, if you add your prayers, add those children to your prayers, and hopefully they do a lot better than their mom and dad, Kathy and George. I feel kind of bad for them.
Let's see, that was Missy, Danny, and Christopher. Mm-hmm. So whatever this did, it screwed them up to some degree.
Sweet kids. Mm-hmm. And remember, kids, don't play with matches unless you want to die.
Yeah,
that's the lesson
think of the
here
worst case scenario. That's right.
Because you do. when you chase worldly goods, you do give up your soul. Never forget, your guardian angel's right there. All you got to do is say, hey, guardian angel, I need you. And they're right there.
Exactly.
Thank you. God bless you. From all of us to all of you. Don't let the bed bugs bite. We'll be back next week. Who's our guest, Ken?
Father Bob Bailey, talking about some forms of movies and TVs, and to what extent I can't remember how we were gonna. We had certain.
Well,
ones
we've
we're
got
gonna
some
talk
interesting
about.
shows to cover. More of this sort of stuff that
Yeah.
just like absolutely grips us about this time of the year during this whole Halloween season that everybody, celebrates Halloween and all the witches' sabbats and all this crazy stuff that people get sucked into. And then following that, we're going to have an All Souls Day show. So we will see you next Friday. God bless you all. Thank you again for joining us. Good night from The Real Deals.
God bless.
The Real Deals TV show, copyright 2018, a Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Kenneth and Farrow's Deal is strictly prohibited.